All right, we're here to talk about this High Republic Katana that Nick did, featuring an etched shroud that I did for him. And this has a custom chassis that was not designed by me, which is kind of a first in a long time. This is a Kessel custom. Actually, I did have to modify it. So let's hop down to the table over here. We'll show off what's going on with this chassis. We'll talk about the electronics, show off a couple blade styles just to show that everything works, go over a few functions. I do know that this particular customer mentioned to me that this is kind of like a first high-end, which is kind of typical for Starfall. So I'll go over several of the commands. Yeah, so let's do that. All right, so over here on the table, we have the chassis. Now this, because of this crystal chamber in the center of the grip, the chassis only takes up about this much room. So Carlos had sent me his design file that he uses for these 1-inch chassis with 18650s, and then I quickly realized we would have to step it down to a 18350. So this battery will come with the Saber. Carlos has marked clearly the positive terminal. These are Keystone contacts. We have a Proffie V3. Keep in mind that the SD card is right up next to that. So when you're playing with this chassis outside of the hilt and it is powered, do your best to not jiggle. I mean, everything's cinched down really well. It does have a stock rotary PCB set so that we have, excuse me, pardon me. We do have a stock rotary PCB set. So keep in mind, you know, that you can put this in anyway, but take care when it's out of the chassis because the speaker is on the bottom. Speaking of which, this is designed for a 22 millimeter KR low profile. This is still a 3-watt 4-ohm speaker. So it does still sound really well in this fully enclosed setup that Carlos did. So yeah, when he sent me the chassis file, I just basically chopped it down the middle, squunched it, and then made sure I designed my holder to fit the rest. So when this is in the Saber, Nick has already provided a little bit of blade stock. So this sits on that offset ring and everything's good to go. Now, one thing I will also mention is that Carlos sent me his new tactiles. So these are an assembly that you can order, I think from Carlos, I think maybe also from Nick, and I want to say from Saberbay, because I want to say Saberbay helped design it. So it's a machined housing, a machine plunger, and then a printed holder and a low profile tactile. Let me see if I have a quick access to one. I do not, but the nice thing about these is you got clicky accents. So when the Saber's facing you, left is your power, right is your aux. And so let's do that. So we're going to put the the battery in. We have a kill switch over here. That is a boot sound of whatever font I left it off while I was testing it. So as you make contact with the pogo pins, the crystal chamber will light up. It is just lit by a single 50/50 neopixel. And then of course the cables run up through here. So yeah, everything's all solid. Nick did provide a blade plug and your thumb screw is your blade retention. I did also, at the request of the client, provide a little etched business card plaque with the name that he came up. So we have a Shtok V3 neopixel emitter. This takes a 1-inch diameter neopixel blade. So I'm just going to throw a demo blade in for a moment. You don't really need to push down too hard. Just make sure they're making contact and then cinch this down. And you have twist on. And then you have thrust on, which is a forward push or a pull. I may not have turned thrust on. I will make sure thrust on is included when I reprogram this. So So we are on Ruin, which is the only Starfall sound font that has a pre-on, and it will light up the emitter just before. So yeah, let's hop out. I'll show a few more things off with this demo blade. And all right, so again, here we go. This comes with the Starfall sound font package, 8 fonts and a 9th preset, so to speak. So 8 presets, all with independent crystal accent. And then for the most part, it will match the blade color, but it can be programmed to be whatever. I will say that these Proffies that I've been getting, actually, I think the whatever batch I got of Proffies came from Saberbay, maybe. I'm forgetting who I bought them from, but the SD card was already loaded up with sound fonts. So I just left all those there. And then they did provide the config that they used. So I just took all those blade styles, threw them at the end just for the customer to have, since they were already provided. But it won't be anything fancy. Basically, the crystal will just match the blade, and it will only turn on when the blade turns on. It's a bunch of very default blade styles. All of the blade styles and crystal chamber styles are specifically for the sound font package. And then at the very end, we have a battery level preset. So if we go back,
Hero's Journey.
You can point the hilt down and press Aux to go backward.
Battery level.
So we are at the last preset. The crystal chamber will go from green when full to red when low. You're gonna hear weird audio artifacts as the speaker as the battery depletes. And being an 18350, we have about maybe 15 to 20 minutes, maybe not even that, but probably about 15 minutes of battery time, depending on what setup you're going on, how loud you're doing it, and how much the blade is lit. When it's in standby, it's probably not going to take up too much. But this, speaking of standby, will turn off after 5 minutes. It doesn't have a full sleep. It just kind of waits for you to wake it back up with a button press. But there will be a slight drain on the battery until it runs out, and then you'll hear some sort of announcement. So you'll need to wake it back up with a button press. That's after 5 minutes. So when a full-length blade is in, you'll see when it's fully charged at the tip, and then as it depletes, there's a little bubble that comes closer to the hilt. However, I did load this up with the Proffie OS voice pack for Hu Yang that comes from Brian Connor. So when we want to get into edit mode, which I won't cover here, but will be on a printout of instructions, he will guide you through all the steps. But if you want to do a quick like battery level or volume indicator, we can hear that. So I'm going to hold aux and tap power.
Battery level 98%.
So I've already fully charged, so we're doing pretty good. In the opposite, hold the power and taps aux, you'll get the volume menu.
Enter volume menu. Maximum volume.
And then it'll go backwards in like 10% increments.
Maximum volume.
Until you get to the end.
Volume menu end.
So that's Hu Yang. He's on all of them. I don't know enough about the rest of the default programming that came for the Proffie, so there may be something going on there, but I highly doubt it. But take a quick look here. You can see there's some shine through on that grip side, and then obviously full shine through on that. And then again, left for power and right for aux. So we'll hit aux. In the blade off state, we'll go forward through the presets. So aux for blaster blocks, clash for that. If you do use a gesture on, you're in battle mode, which means you don't have to hold a button to engage a lockup. So if I clash the saber, I'll lock it up until I pull it away. In fact, let me actually put a full length blade in. This is programmed for a 36-inch blade length per the request of Nick. And this demo blade is going to be the new Quantum, I think is what it's called. blade with 400 or something pixels. So this is a 36-inch blade length, and it has a very good color, but it will work with any standard blade as well. So again, if we hold, we're in regular mode. So if we want to engage a lockup, we have to hold aux or power as we clash. So we'll get that there. But if we do a gesture on, and I apologize for the autofocus, I'm using a webcam. So if we use a gesture on, like twist on, we're in battle mode. So again, you don't have to hold a button to engage a lockup. So let me do that real quick. So again, I just twisted on. So now if I clash, you can move it around a little bit, but you have to pull it away to get out of the lockup. Now a lockup is also melt effects. If you're holding the saber horizontal and you clash like this, you're in a melt. And then if you point the hilt down, you'll do a drag. Now I'm not gonna be able to get that on camera. So those are the battle mode features. Again, that's only with gestures, and you can turn that off. Or if you're just old school and you just like to control every aspect through button commands, then I would just suggest powering on with the button. So let's go through a couple more sound fonts just to show what we're working with. The ability for this to play force effects or quote effects is the same button. So if we hold power for 2 seconds when the blade is on, as long as we're not pointing straight up or straight down, we'll do a force effect. And what I've done for the programming, as long as it plays a sound, it'll go to like this unstable. Now it'll be different for the Ruin that we started off on, but it will animate the blade so you know you did a force effect. So one more time, hold power. And I hope it's picking that up on my mic here. But if we want to switch to quote player, and I believe this has quotes, point the hilt straight down, hold for 2 seconds. So I'm just showing that off because if you add fonts in the future, a lot of the font makers provide tons of quotes, and I've had to do that for other clients. So I just wanted to let you know that feature is already running. All you just need to do is make sure that when you set up your font folder that you have those force effects and quote effects in the appropriate folder with the appropriate name. So moving on again, we'll just show off here. I should probably step back. And if you're hearing anything, my dog's dreaming.
Hero's Journey.
So here we got old school. Now, not every Starfall sound font has quotes, but I think half of them do. So again, if you wanted to play force effects, then you would just switch back and forth depending on what state you were in the last. So when we want to do a color change, when the blade is on, we'll hold aux and tap power. And then we just rotate.
Orange, red.
And then Hu Yang will tell you the color, like specific colors.
Orange.
And then you'll press power for whichever color you want. Or to revert, you hit aux. So I'm going to revert.
Revert.
But there's only one preset where that is not the case. That is the very last one. That's corn horn. So let me demonstrate that. This one has color change direct. So when you enter color change mode, it will just flip-flop between a standard white and then a like light purplish color, which has to do with the lore of the character. So it starts off in white, and then when we do hold aux and tap power, I hope that shows up, it's purple. And then it matches in the crystal as well. And so that's just color change direct. It's only for this particular preset with the corn horn font. So that is pretty much the Saber. I will have a printout for you with more instructions on how to operate it. I've already sent you a link to what those are. And I've tried to explain in mine a few of the options that I've set, but the link that I had emailed you will have every option available. So if you have any questions on does this feature work or not, check the printout first and then let me know via email. So let me show off a couple just for fun what came with the SD card. So you know, again, I didn't do any programming. I just copied it over from the text file that was on the SD card. And so you'll notice that the crystal will turn off.
That lightsaber was Luke's.
And I'm not 100% who these font makers are, but and again,
I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
didn't want you to lose the ability to have all these sound fonts. Okay, let me go back one.
I am a Jedi.
Okay, one more thing to note with the functions of these is there's two different ways to play soundtracks. Now, for every preset for the for the Starfall Sound Font Collection, I've pre-selected a soundtrack. To get that soundtrack, we want to hold the hilt upright and hold power for 2 seconds when the blade is off. And then you can do the same thing to turn it off. Just hold power for 2 seconds. Now, when the hilt is horizontal, you'll get into track player mode. And what I've done is made all of the tracks be under the common folder where the Huyang voice pack lives. So that way every preset can access a very long list of soundtracks to choose from. So you'll hear a little chime to start. It'll start playing the first alphanumerically ordered track, and then when you rotate to the right, it'll go forward or backwards, I forget which way. And if you rotate to the left, it'll go forward or back, and then you'll hear it restart a track until you press a button. Now, check the printout, but power does one thing. I think it just plays that one track through. If you hit aux, it'll continue playing the next sequential tracks. I'm not real sure. Again, check the printout, but hit one of the two buttons to select that track, and then you can throw the saber around. So let's do that real quick. So hit a button. Now we can move it, and we can ignite. All right. When the saber is lit, to turn that track off, you have to be pointed upright. And that's the only way to do it when the blade is on. If the blade is off, you can start the track player. But you can start and stop a track with the blade on, but it will only ever be the selected track that I chose. So I don't know if you just heard that, but we started off in one of the oh man, I'm forgetting who that, Galactic Empire, I think, tracks. And then it went to the selected track that is for this particular sound font. So again, that's track player mode and then selected tracks. But again, you can do all of these things on or off. It just depends on orientation and what it is you want to achieve. So again, check the printout. But when we're done, let's switch over here to the side. We want to take the blade out. We can put our blade plug back in, hit our retention screw, take the pommel, unscrew it. Be careful to do this over a surface because this is a very tiny chassis. And we can either turn the power off or we can pull the battery to go charge it. Now, the nice thing about these 350s is even though there's only 1200 milliamp hours, because this is a simple setup, it will last anywhere from, like I said, 15 to 20 minutes. I don't really have a real number. I've never actually used this for that. But the other nice thing is, even though it's maybe only 15 minutes of runtime, it only actually takes an hour or two to charge. Whereas if you have like an 18650, you're going to be waiting a few hours and you're only going to get maybe 20 to 30 minutes of charge, playtime. So that is the Zenith from Starfall to the customer. If you have any questions, let me know. I've provided my email. But again, I highly suggest you check all the links that I've sent, the printout, before coming to me with a question, because chances are you can answer the question yourself. To anyone out there that's watching this, I appreciate all of the likes and views. But yeah, this one is a real quick one. I do want to also re-thank Carlos for sending me both the tactile switches and the design file for the chassis. All I really had to do was chop it up and print it, and then design my little holders for the emitter and the rotary PCB. So this was a real quick run and gun for me. Thanks again to everyone out there, and may the force be with you.